when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight.
You used to be an alarmist on climate change, and now you think a lot of this is fear-mongering? So what changed your mind?
Well, I saw Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. I went to see Leonardo DiCaprio's movie. I still consider myself an environmentalist. We need to clean the air, clean the water, clean the oceans. When you start to get down to the facts and you start realizing that most of the ocean is unexplored and most of Earth is ocean, they're finding active volcanoes under melting glaciers. You have India and China among the biggest polluters that are never targeted with these protests, and the list goes on and on of things that just aren't adding up. Glaciers that they said are melting that are actually growing for 3 straight years. NASA themselves in a 2018 article admitted that they only measure the coastline. Some of it's melting, some of it's growing, and they can't even measure the snowfall because their satellites aren't good enough. So the fact that they say the science is settled is a made-up term. Science doesn't settle, especially on a planet where most of it's unexplored. So I don't understand why they call anybody who counters them a denier.
Climate deniers, people who believe climate change is not happening in any meaningful way, are sometimes painted in the media as fringe characters, as kooks. So this might shock you.
Our house is on fire.
And she's a kind of a global star right now, but at some point that will go away, and then what happens?
Well, it's sad because they're bringing fear onto people, and fear is never the answer. A lot of news networks do that. They spread fear. There's a Dutch kid who was a teenager who invented something to clean up the ocean, and he's cleaning up tons upon tons of plastic out of the ocean. They never give him that type of press because he has solutions. It's not just all fear-mongering. Yeah, and also when it comes to Los Angeles and San Francisco, a lot of the environmentalists come from there. It's the dirtiest city. I mean, San Francisco's voted the worst hygiene. Los Angeles has the worst pollution. So when you kind of put a laser point for a cat and everyone goes, oh my God, climate change, they don't realize there's volcanoes, ice shifts, and the ocean that they can't even explore. Then they realize that, oh wait, they're actually kind of brainwashing you, manipulating you to not solve the environment.
Both of you, we're going to have you back.
I'd like to fact check what I was talking about. The 2018 NASA article where they're showing that it's not melting quite as fast as they thought due to snowfall, and in that article they literally do admit that their satellites can't measure all the snowfall, and the only part of Antarctica that they measure is actually the coastlines. That's why you see this map here. My other facts, such as the Earth being mostly unexplored, is pretty much anywhere that you search, including government websites. Check out the Dutch kid who invented something to clean up the ocean. He's excellent. And also search about active volcanoes that they're finding under glaciers. And here's Greenland's quote-unquote fastest melting glacier that I mentioned in a NASA article, them saying that it's actually been growing for the last 3 years.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Not drowning, they're growing. But it's incredible the lies that I hear repeated almost daily by politicians and journalists and activists, people who should know better. And they tell these lies to children like Thunberg. Lies like cyclones are increasing. Well, no, they're not. Not here and not around the world. On it goes. More people are dying from climate disasters, they say. And like you just heard Thunberg repeat, no, they're not. You check the statistics from the International Disaster Database. The risk of dying from a climate-related disaster has actually dropped 99% over the past decade. Children have never been less likely to die from climate catastrophes, yet there is poor Greta Thunberg, never more convinced that she'll actually be killed. Who has done this to her? You know, it's those brainless activists and those shameless politicians like US Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, frightening them with totally fake stories that they've only got a few years left to live.
We lost a generation of time we'll never get back. Entire species will never get back. Natural wonders gone forever. And in 2017, Hurricane Maria destroyed the place where my family was from, Puerto Rico. It was like a climate bomb. It took as many American lives as 9/11. And in the next year, when I was elected to Congress, the world's leading climate scientists declared another emergency. They told us that we had 12 years left to cut our emissions in half, or hundreds of millions of people would be more likely to face food and water shortages, poverty, and death. 12 years to change everything. How we got around, how we fed ourselves, how we made our stuff, how we lived and worked, everything.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And like, this is the war. This is our World War II.
12 years left to live. Such filthy untruths. It's child abuse. I'll repeat it, child abuse.
Erosion of fertile topsoil. Deforestation of our great forests. Toxic air pollution. Loss of insects and wildlife. The acidification of our oceans. These are all disastrous trends being accelerated by a way of life that we, here in our financially fortunate part of the world, see as our right to simply carry on.
And you just saw the results. Shame on the people who turned Greta Thunberg into their child messiah, into their child martyr.
And it's okay if you refuse to listen to me. I am, after all, just a 16-year-old schoolgirl from Sweden.
Hello, I'm Severin Suzuki, speaking for ECHO, the Environmental Children's Organization. We're a group of 12 and 13-year-olds trying to make a difference. Vanessa Setti, Morgan Geisler, Michelle Quigg, and me. We've raised all the money to come here ourselves, to come 5,000 miles to tell you adults you must change your ways. Coming up here today, I have no hidden agenda. I am fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I am here to speak for all generations to come. I am here to speak on behalf of the starving children around the world whose cries go unheard. I am here to speak for the countless animals dying across this planet because they have nowhere left to go. I am afraid to go out in the sun now because of the holes in our ozone. I am afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it. I used to go fishing in Vancouver, my home, with my dad, until just a few years ago we found the fish full of cancers. And now we hear of animals and plants going extinct, every day vanishing forever. In my life, I have dreamt of seeing the great herds of wild animals, jungles and rainforests full of birds and butterflies. But now I wonder if they will even exist for my children to see. Did you have to worry of these things when you were my age? All this is happening before our eyes, and yet we act as if we have all the time we want and all the solutions.
There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable, and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is.
I am only a child, yet I know if all the money spent on war was spent on finding environmental answers, ending poverty, and finding treaties, what a wonderful place this earth would be.
You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you.
Do not forget why you are attending these conferences, who you're doing this for. We are your own children. You are deciding what kind of a world we are growing up in. Parents should be able to comfort their children by saying, everything's going to be all right. It's not the end of the world, and we're doing the best we can. But I don't think you can say that to us anymore. Are we even on your list of priorities? My dad always says, you are what you do, not what you say. Well, what you do makes me cry at night. You grown-ups say you love us, but I challenge you, please, make your actions reflect your words.
We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
This is our final chance. The scientists are absolutely unanimous on this, that we have no more than 12 years to take incredibly bold action on this crisis.
That's just pathetic. But this show cares about science, and so we want to assess the claim critically and scientifically.
Basically, the cycles of climate change, the last ice age we had was tens of thousands of years ago. So bear in mind that in ancient dinosaur days, there was more carbon dioxide. The world was warmer than it is now. There was an inland sea in what is now Wyoming. It's a problem. Now, here's the thing. Half the people in the world live on sea coasts. As we get the ocean a little bit warmer, the ocean's going to expand. If there would have been another ice age, ain't gonna happen because of you and me.
Stop, for God's sake, the denigration of science.
Okay, I gotta disagree with you. I claim I do have the answers.
Okay.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Why aren't you concerned about it? Don't you have 4 children? Why aren't you concerned
I am
about
concerned. That's why I'm having you on. Climate is always changing. You've conceded that. You're saying that human activity has increased the speed.
Yeah.
Increases the speed of that change. That period.
Yes, Britain would not be very well suited to growing grapes as it is today. French winemakers would not be buying land to the north as they are now. People who plan to run ski resorts would still be able to do it in Europe. And so the climate change and the parasites.
You're using the language of politics. Look, you're not a scientist, as you know. You're a popularizer.
I'm using the
and
language
that's fine.
of economics.
But
so
I'm just saying,
you
look,
asked what it would
to the
be
extent
like
that you
without
prevent
human
people,
okay,
if you prevent people from having an honest conversation, you're doing a grave disservice to science. Don't you think that?
So.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Scientifically, do we really have 12 years left? That's what they're saying. Is it true? Is there science that shows that?
Actually, the Associated Press today debunked that, which was pretty fascinating for someone who studies energy and environmental issues, to see the Associated Press walk that back and say, we have never said there are 12 years left to fix climate change. But
it's from the inside. Carry on, Mr. Carlson. I'm sure we will cross paths again.
That's a very ominous thing to say. I don't know what it means, but come back anytime.
But it is nonsense that they've repeated this over and over again, and it never gets, as you said in your first segment, it never gets corrected and no one apologizes.
So these are basically people you're saying who believe that Bill Nye is actually a science guy and not just a buffoon created by television.
Exactly.
Okay. Motherfuckers.
Okay. And what I'd love to ask these folks, I remember a report in 1989, I was a freshman in high school when it came out, that said we had 10 years left. By the year 2000, we had to fix climate change. What did they get wrong then? The same UN panel, by the way, issued both reports. What did they get wrong then when you do things under the guise of protecting Mother Earth or for the planet or for the children?
Because I am a child, and when a child said something like, "You're stealing my future," then people feel very guilty. That the message, I think, gets across.